So next up, I'm going to do a real whistle-stop tour of a model that we created, which is around 4 ways of maximising revenue in F&B. For background to this, and just to contextualise, we were really looking at trying to create something that was very, very tactical, and that people who are in the audience here could go away and tick off a checklist. So usually, and we deliver on this at a strategic level with a lot of very big companies, including hotel brands, but this is really about a checklist because I know that there's people here who want to be able to go back with takeaways and understand how to do it. So as I said before, we run a company called Think Hospitality. We've been around for around 8 years, and we accelerate the growth of restaurant brands and maximise the food and beverage opportunity for retailers, hoteliers, and property developers. We've got bases all over the world. I'm based in the beautiful, or just north of the beautiful city of Edinburgh. Jennifer, who many of you have seen on stage, is now working with us based out of Dubai. And we work with all kinds of brands all over the world, from major retailers like IKEA to the big hospitality and hotel brands to investors, and absolutely proud to be able to work across that whole breadth. So the model is very simple, and we try to create this simple model because sometimes things need to be simplified. I love simplification. So 4 ways to make revenue in a restaurant: sell more to your existing guests, optimize your capacity, drive higher frequency visits, and attract new customers. It's that simple. Well, of course, it's not that simple, but we're making it simple. The point that I want to make here, though, is that whenever, and I used to run marketing agencies and strategy agencies, and every brief that came in, everyone always talks about this. They want you to bring new customers in. And the flip and the difference between when I moved out of marketing agencies, when I was fundamentally wanting to bill you a retainer for bringing new customers in, to running a strategy-based business, was saying, actually, that's the hardest thing to do. All the other 3 are much easier to do. So, and I could spend half a day, and there's people in this room that are much better at bringing in new customers. So for today, we're not talking that, we're talking the other 3. So let's talk about selling more to existing. So what do we mean by this? And actually, I need to make sure this screen's so massive that I need to keep moving side to side. The first thing I would say here is menu science. If I had to talk about one thing that we've worked with, and we've probably done this with over 10 major clients now, that has brought the biggest guaranteed return, it's menu science, using behavioral science technology and techniques. You can see on the right-hand side here that these are eye-tracking glasses. These are one of the scientific methodologies that the partner we work with on this uses to be able to help determine future-proofing and ensuring commercial return. We've worked with hotel companies that have got around 2,000 to 3,000 restaurants, of which we've done trials with around 10 or 12 before it was rolled out. The minimum uplift we've seen in a revenue perspective on the menu science development has been around 4.5% minimum revenue increase. Typically, it's into double digits. And this is purely no changes to the actual menu, no changes to the proposition, no changes to the pricing. This is about how you design the menu. The key here is that guest behavior is absolutely predictable. Overall, guests, the experience will be shaped by what the experience they have, and a lot of that is to do with the menu. We worked with a business out of the UK called Feed It Back for a number of years ago, and it was interesting. The 2 things that determined the greatest outcome of guest satisfaction was A, having the menu described to you, and B, having an opportunity to be able to connect personally with the individual that's serving you. Those 2 things had the biggest impact at the other end of NPS. It's a really fascinating piece. What's really interesting, though, is that most of us print a menu and see it as a list of items that people can choose from. Behavioral science and how guests actually interact with menus suggests that that's just not the reality. We can absolutely help people to determine what to order and take them on a journey that helps, because interestingly, guests do not like choice. As consumers, we like the perception of choice. We don't like choice. If I put 2 or 3 set menu items, and I'm not talking about the old school set menu of an individual piece of paper that comes separately from the menu, I'm talking about within the menu structure, 2 or 3 easy picks, we know that by having 2 or 3 rather than 1, we will see an uptake of between 35 and 45% of those fixed item menus, which ultimately drives the average spend, but also, more importantly, improves the guest experience. Why does it improve the guest experience? Because we're helping to guide the guest experience. And actually, most menus you go into, they don't even look at having bundles or set menu items within the main menu because it's perceived as being old school. But actually, most people are not dining for the food. I'm really sorry to break that to you, but people are not dining for the food. People are dining for the experience and for the conversation they're having over the table. Everything else happening around them is facilitating that experience. So therefore, they want a simple solution to be able to make sure they're not disappointed. And that's a great opportunity for the set menu place. The interesting thing around very, very simple uplift, and we've seen this for a long time, is marked items on menus. So highlighted items. Interestingly, though, and I would suggest wholeheartedly that people stop running down the route of just putting their highest margins in boxes. My view very strongly with this is that at the end of the day, the one average check on the day is not as important as the experience factor of your restaurant and the shareability of that restaurant. And what I would highly suggest is that you put the dishes that you know people love and talk about and want to come back for as the items that you promote. And if you can make those high margin, that's fantastic too. We've done quite a lot of this looking at how you add theatrical elements and tableside service, which is, it's fascinating that if I rewind 15 years ago, I was classically trained as a waiter and a sommelier at Gleneagles in Scotland, where I was taught to do all the Garridon work. If you told me that 15 years later, I would be standing on stage saying that tableside service was becoming a thing again, I would not have believed you. But here we are. The next one is this sense of convenience versus experience. Yesterday, someone sat on stage here, I can't remember who specifically, and said, the problem is that the upselling thing doesn't work, and it means that people go away from my venue thinking that it's really expensive. And that their perception is that it's really expensive. Let's be clear here. There is a trifecta. There are 3 key items that are interlinked to value. The first is time, the second is money, and the third is experience factor. In a convenience-based occasion, I'm here for lunch, I'm just here for a business lunch, it's quick, I'm in and out. Yes, I may get bill shock if what I'm expecting is much higher. If I sit at the other end of that, and I'm here for an experience, I'm here for a special occasion, I am wanting to have an incredible experience. And the hospitality providers who are there, the waiting staff, the sommelier, whoever it is, their responsibility is to give me the best experience in the world on that exact day. And I am far less likely to be concerned about how much money I'm spending. The key is that I have a choice how much money I'm spending. So there is a base level that allows me to be able to have a great time at great value. If I then choose to buy a bottle of Krug, I'm choosing to buy a bottle of Krug. But tell me and give me the opportunity to buy the bottle of Krug, or the caviar, or whatever it is we're referencing in the market. It's really important when we think about, and I hate the kind of upselling piece, but ultimately, when we're talking about maximizing return from an individual guest, the key here is team engagement. I'm putting this on the right, old school, back in the day, bingo cards and playing what can I sell and what should I sell. I'm not suggesting you all go away and do old school bingo cards, but I do think there's a very strong piece about engaging your team and training and so on. I don't have to tell you that training creates output in terms of sales. If you train around a product, you see almost an immediate uplift of the sale of that product. I mean, it's a very simple solution. What I would also say here is that, and it was interesting we were talking about MGM Grand here a little while ago on stage, I did some work with a big Vegas property a few years ago, and they showed me what can only be described as a Boston matrix for anyone that studied marketing or business. So on one side of it was the model of the experience, so the guest feedback. On the other side, it was spend per head. And every week, every employee on the floor of their restaurants was modeled into this matrix against where they sat. They used the metrics of tips, because it's the US, and they used the matrix of the revenue out of the EPOS. And it was interesting that at their level, it was about benchmarking people's ability to understand where they sat against colleagues. And it's fascinating when you start benchmarking and giving people an opportunity to see where they sit against other people, how it drastically changes their perception of and their ability and what they're willing to do. And I think to Catherine's point earlier about the measurement and the idea of what you can't measure, you can't manage. The other thing I wouldn't downplay, particularly if you're sitting in a hotel space, is pre-sale. One of the things that we're seeing more and more of is F&B-based experiences in reference of mocktail masterclasses, being able to come in earlier in terms of reservation and having a dedicated experience that was pre-booked. I'm still shocked. I'm probably staying in 200 hotel nights a year. I'm still shocked that almost every stay, I'm not being pre-marketed restaurants. I mean, it seems ludicrous to me that I'm coming to your property, I'm probably planning to eat out that night somewhere, and yet no one's pre-marketing to me, and no one's giving me a reason to come to their property and to dine at their property. It's still not happening as a standard. It's a very simple opportunity. And again, with those experiences, I would think out of the box with this. One of the things that we've seen as well within groups is helping to move groups earlier in the day, is doing something that becomes more interesting and inspirational so that they can come through. One property I worked with that said, I can't do any of these mocktail masterclasses and so on because I don't have the skills. We actually ended up creating a solution for where they did a program where they had people actually do a bed-making competition in an empty suite. They served champagne up in the empty suite. It was a fixed cost. It got people there earlier, and it also meant that the bar wasn't busy with those 16 people because they were upstairs in a suite that was going to be empty. Just an example of something quite simple. The next was optimizing capacity. Of course, reservation management is really key here, and I think that making sure that you're proactively managing reservations and you're proactively determining when people can come to your restaurant to maximize table turns. It's fascinating that I used to run a restaurant in Edinburgh a long time ago as part of a group, and within that, everyone would tell you that no one dines late in Edinburgh. So everyone dines by 8:30 in Edinburgh. I was getting a third table turn at 9:30 and 10 p.m. by giving the opportunity and pushing people to being later diners, and it was just completely unheard of. The other thing I wouldn't also underplay is that incentivization of coming earlier or later. If you've already got reservations and you're trying to maximize capacity, calling people and offering people a complimentary drink if they're able to come earlier, or if we can push you back a little bit later, we can do a meet and greet with a chef. All of these very simple things that aren't costing you much, but helping to maximize an extra table turn. Again, this is all super tactical, but just trying to give examples of how people can make this work. The larger group pieces, of course, push earlier and later. We're seeing a lot of increase in dynamic pricing now. I can give you this price if you come at this time. I can give you this price if you come at this time, early or late. But actually, if you want to come at 7 p.m., then I'm going to be charging you a 50% surcharge on the same item for C and B. And I think that we've been working with a big hotel group on managing this, because I think people are used to doing it on times of week, aren't necessarily used to doing it at time of day. And I think that the operational efficiencies piece is the stuff that we would like to think that everybody knows, but from my experience, they clearly don't. Quicker turnaround of tables, putting your aces in places, making sure that your best people are on shift at the exact right times they need to be, considering using bus as runners, reviewing menus for items that slow down service. And this is one that I think we saw a lot in Europe in the post-COVID world, where there was a big challenge with labor, is a lot of people deciding that they were going to reduce the menu size and reduce the complexity of menus, and that this made quite a big difference. And did you know that McDonald's now dynamically reduces menu size on their biggest service periods? If you go into a peak McDonald's in the US or UK, I can't speak to this region because I'm not sure, on a Saturday after a rugby or football match, they have a reduced offer than they do any other time of the day. And again, and that's because they want to put more people through with maximum return. The last one I'm talking about today is increasing visit frequency. The guest recognition, let's not get past this. I can give you as many tips as you want about loyalty, programs, and all the rest of it, but what's going to bring people back is people having incredible experiences and guest recognition. So making sure that you use surprise and delight-based loyalty and rewards, going above and beyond in service, recognizing teams for doing that, and also the old school basis of guest history. The amount of people that I know that try to create one customer viewpoints, and they get themselves trapped in this huge cycle, and then no one's using the data at the other end. When actually old school one customer view, old school guest history notes have a very big opportunity to be able to be brought back. And let's not forget that the best service in the world comes from people who have been in post for a long time. The best service I've been to 2 restaurants over the last year where I think that I've probably had the best service I've ever had. And those restaurant managers have been in place for more than a decade, and their core team have been in place for more than a decade. You cannot underplay the importance of length of service. What I would say, though, is we did a survey about 6 months ago, and we subscribed to 200 restaurant email newsletters. 6 months later, 70% of them have still sent us nothing. So people collect your data and don't use it. Flip that on the other end, and I have a takeaway in my local town that every Friday, I ask them, they have no solution, he does this manually, messages the people who he perceives as being the 50 people who are likely to order for him tonight, at 4 p.m., and says on WhatsApp, look forward to seeing your order tonight, how can I help? I mean, that's clever, right? That's all from me. You'll be hearing lots more from me today because I'm doing lots of panels. But the website's thinkhospitality.co.uk. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn, and we'd love to talk to you more intrinsically about how you can be building revenue more strategically. On that basis, I'm going to hand over to one of my favorite people. So Emma Banks is coming on stage, and she's going to be talking to you about the incredible work they've done in terms of driving sustainability and food waste. And it really delights me every time I hear updates on this, because lots of people talk the talk, but Emma and her team walk the walk. So over to you.